Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Maddie Fries. Tonight we're taking a look back at some award-winning and nominated stories produced here in the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at ASU.
Eating disorders can stem from genetics, isolation, and loneliness. The National Eating Disorders Association has reported a 58% spike in helpline messages since the beginning of the pandemic. Cronkite News reporter Faith Abercrombie talked with people in the community about what's causing the increase.
Feeling on top of the world,
you got it,
can sometimes require a helping hand.
Good job!
31 years of therapy, basically since I was 16.
Jennifer James knows sliding through life's obstacles doesn't have an age minimum.
It was reading food labels when I knew how to read. Some breath.
The 47-year-old Arizona mom remembers having negative thoughts about her body image at 5 years old.
Not looking like my adoptive family, seeing differences, and then wondering why.
Jennifer is one of 30 million people in the U.S. with an eating disorder, and that number has only increased over the pandemic.
Oftentimes, trauma may induce a stress response, and then that stress in and of itself may impact the way somebody approaches food.
Eating disorders are not formally tracked like other illnesses. While the World Health Organization and the CDC track many physical and mental issues, neither include eating disorders specifically.
A lot of eating disorders are underreported or misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, especially if you don't fit that stereotype.
We've absolutely seen an increase not only in our call volume, but in our admissions at Rosewood.
Quarantines and social distancing can be isolating, says Rosewood Ranch psychologist Dr. Dina Cabrera, a risk factor for eating disorder behaviors.
We've seen a significant increase in mood struggles, isolation, and most certainly related to disconnection.
Next to opioid addiction, people with eating disorders have the second highest risk of death for mental illnesses, which translates to about one person every 52 minutes. And since the pandemic, people reaching out for help around suicidality and self-harm has increased from 3% to 8% each month.
Food is a way that people can control something.
Despite the social barriers, James continued to work with a support group during the pandemic.
We ate dinner together on Zoom, and we did our talks and our processing and just clung to each other like our own kind of little family.
Good job,
James describes an eating disorder as an ongoing journey. She teaches her daughter Scarlett that every body is beautiful, positive self-talk is important.
I love it.
And a couple of happy dances doesn't hurt either.
Talking about our bodies, that our bodies are beautiful, they are the vessels of life that carry us.
Dr. Cabrera and James say getting help starts with a first step.
The power of telling one person is huge.
And that the climb is worth it.
Scarlett and I are gonna lace up our Doc Martens and walk through life, and we're gonna handle whatever happens in this life.
In Phoenix,
I like this day, Mom.
Faith Abercrombie, Cronkite News.
The National Eating Disorders Association has an online screening tool to determine if you should seek professional help. You can contact NEDA through their helpline in the form of a text message, online chat, or phone call at 800-931-2237. If you are in crisis and need help immediately, text NEDA to 741-741.
More than 50% of people in the U.S. are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, but many remain hesitant about getting their shots. In this week's episode of COVID Case by Case, Cronkite News reporter Camila Williams tells us what exactly is in the vaccines and how they work.
Welcome to Case by Case. I'm Camila Williams. A few weeks ago, we talked about the difference between emergency and full FDA approval of the vaccines. This week, I thought I'd give you some more information about the main genetic material of the shots and how the vaccine works once it enters your body. So today, we're answering the question, how does the vaccine work? I talked with Dr. Erin O'Connor, a medical toxicologist at Banner University Medical Center and Phoenix Children's Hospital. And she's going to tell you about the components of the vaccine.
If you're looking at the messenger RNA vaccines, so that's the Pfizer, BioNTech, and the Moderna products, basically the active ingredient is that little snippet of messenger RNA that codes for a portion of that SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, that if we get that into our cells can make that little sequence of that spike protein, and then our immune system can respond to it. So that's the nuts and bolts of the vaccine. That's what the active ingredient is. But in order to get that into our cells, we have to have vehicles and we have to have other products to make it absorbed and taken up by the cells. And that's where the inactive ingredients come from.
That was a lot of information, but let me break it down for you. The messenger RNA teaches the cells in your body how to make a protein that would trigger an immune response to protect you from getting the virus. Now, the vaccine doesn't contain the virus or any portion of the virus, and it won't change your DNA in any way, shape, or form. What the messenger RNA will do is teach the cells in your body to make a copy of the spike protein that characterizes the COVID virus. Your body will recognize that protein as foreign and trigger an immune response. In the future, if you are exposed to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, your body will fight off the real virus and markedly reduce the chances of hospitalization or death from COVID. When I got the vaccine, I had a mild fever, headache, and chills. And according to the CDC, that means the vaccine is working and those symptoms are normal. Go to vaccines.gov for more information about the vaccine providers near you. In the Broadcast Center, Camila Williams, Cronkite News.
This is Yvette with Phoenix Rescue Mission. How are you doing this afternoon? That's good. Do you perchance have any openings? She says she can't take sleeping in her car tonight, and I told her, let me see what I can do. What else do you want to know?
I began to struggle with suicidal ideations at the age of 19. So I've struggled most of my adult life. During the height of my battle with my behavioral health, I became homeless for a short while. I had to just stop everything and focus on my behavioral health, and that's what I did for 3 years.
This is when I was stationed in New Jersey, but I think this picture really tells the story, because if you're able to look in my eyes in this picture, there's just a sadness there. There's just a sadness there. And it just goes to show you that I had friends and I had connections, but something was missing at that point in time, because I tried to take my life.
It saved my life. A judge that thought enough of me to take a total look at me as a person and not my last action to give me an opportunity. And I run with that opportunity, so I seek my recovery with everything that's in me. Every time that I am attempting to give hope to another individual that I come across in the street, it just strengthens my resolve in my own recovery. Do I see behavioral health challenges on the street? Yes. And because of stigma, a lot of times people won't go and get the help that they need. It's almost been demonized. You know, we're still battling people looking at it as a moral failing. It's not. Your mind is sick. Just like your body can get sick, your mind can get sick. But a person has to be willing. You have to surrender. And that goes against human nature. So, you know, a lot of times it can be an uphill battle, but it is well worth it, because there is life on the other side of surviving through a struggle of behavioral health challenges.
According to the USDA, honeybees are responsible for 1 out of every 3 bites of food we take, but they are currently facing dire threats. This year, over 1,000 beehives have been reported missing or vandalized in California. Karen Marroquin traveled to California's farming communities to explain what's happening to the bees and what's at stake.
Here in Fresno County, bees are essential for the growth of a lot of the country's produce, including plums here at 559 Honey Company. But in February of this year, Ben Zentner, a beekeeper in Kingsburg, received a pivotal call from a local farmer.
He told me that I had a beehive knocked over, so came out, took a look at it, ended up seeing that all 4 hives were knocked over and that it was done maliciously, and ended up having 2 of the hives basically die off because of damage, plus I've got damage on equipment.
The vandalization cost Zentner nearly $700, but this isn't the first time that something like this has happened to him, and he's not alone. Rowdy Freeman, Butte County Sheriff's deputy and beekeeper, says that so far in California this year, 1,169 beehives have been reported vandalized or stolen.
It's the perfect crime, it's one beekeeper stealing from another, and it's very difficult for beekeepers or even the general public to be able to differentiate between whether or not it's the legitimate beekeeper or it's a theft in progress.
This is similar to what happened in Zentner's situation.
The other individual was short on a contract and decided that they were going to get easy money and basically steal whole entire semi-load worth of bees.
Bees are extremely important to the agricultural community because without these, farmers and beekeepers wouldn't be able to grow food such as almonds or plums. Over a third of the country's vegetables and 2/3 of the country's fruits and nuts are grown in California, according to state agriculture officials. Many of the crops here depend on bees to pollinate plants and trees to produce food. So honeybees are vital workers here and are often transported from farm to farm to do their job. However, the availability of cropland has been declining, while beehive rental costs are on the rise.
This year, the average price for a beehive was probably between $210 and $225 per hive. Some farmers need a couple hundred. Some farmers need a couple thousand.
Freeman says that's making it easy for thieves to make a lot of money with little effort. Luckily for Zentner, the thieves didn't get away with the crime thanks to GPS trackers that he installed in his beehives, which spared him a huge financial loss.
Of all the hives that were there, I'm going to guess it would have been over $100,000.
And it didn't take much to protect his bees.
The individual devices themselves are somewhere in the $100, $150 range normally, and then you pay for those activation services, like a monthly fee on those devices. It's kind of a small price to pay to help protect your property and your bees.
Still, Zentner says that beehive thefts and vandalizations are far from gone.
It'll slow it down some, but it won't stop all of it because we can't have a GPS and everything. But, we can do what we can only do.
In Kingsburg, California, Karen Marroquin, Cronkite News.
Law enforcement officials say it's very difficult to investigate these types of crimes because they usually happen in rural areas, but they'll keep working hard to fight against the theft and vandalism. The Pascua Yaqui tribe in Tucson is the first community in Arizona to benefit from the U.S. Water Resource Development Act. The federal government will grant the Yaqui people $900,000 for a new water pipeline. Cronkite News reporter Kaylin Kinahan shares how the pipe will bring non-potable water hundreds of miles from Lake Havasu City.
The Pascua Yaqui tribe has been rooted in this land for generations.
My children now have played in these fields, have actually grown up in these fields, just like a lot of tribal members here. We have the summer leagues, and then we have the fall leagues. Right? The biggest hurdle was water. How do we keep these fields green, and how do you keep this whole community intact?
Future generations face a problem. In 15 years, the tribe fears that they'll run out of water.
They told us there is no water here. There is nothing here for you. Why did you accept the land? We accepted it because our forefathers had walked through these lands. This is where they wanted to make and create a place for us to be safe, to be healthy, and to be able to practice our faith.
Here are the plans that were produced for the project.
Now, a new government program could help the Yaqui tribe ensure their future on the land, with money for a new pipeline. The act funds rural communities to develop new revenues of water. Democratic Congressman Greg Stanton recognized the need in rural areas of Arizona. and specifically the Yaqui tribe.
It was a perfect project for this new program that we were able to create in Congress.
Right now, the tribe gets a limited amount of drinkable water from the city of Tucson.
Every single year it's a struggle to meet that need. You know, our reservation, our population keeps growing.
And with more people, that means less water for things like gardening, laundry, and field upkeep.
This is a big issue across the state of Arizona, where we are using drinking water for purposes where we don't need to be using drinking water, and it's not a good use of drinking water.
The $1.2 million pipeline will bring the tribe water from the Central Arizona Project. The pipeline's going to be installed nearly 6 feet underground, where it will span off and irrigate nearby parks, homes, and even the wellness center.
This just didn't happen overnight. This was probably over 2 years in the making. But in terms of boots on the ground time constructing this, you're looking at probably a 4-month time frame.
The construction will last a few months.
I want you to find the end with the cap on.
But the water source is expected to last for decades.
The elders used to tell us a saying, and it says, Enchi Mampotawak. In Yaqui means, now it's in your hands. You're supposed to take care of it, nurture it, and develop it, and leave it for the next generation.
On the Pascua Yaqui Reservation in Tucson, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.
From baseball to softball, the Xavier College Prep Gators have had a whirlwind of emotions over the past year. After winning their first softball state championship last year, they are in the thick of a championship defense.
But this season takes on special meaning after losing one of their own to cancer. Cronkite sports reporter Benjamin Garcia has more on their season of remembrance.
After winning their first ever state championship last year, Xavier Prep softball is poised to make a run at another title this season. Winning back-to-back championships seems hard enough, but for the Gators, doing it with heavy hearts is even more difficult.
She looks to you for strength, and she looks to you to just keep going. But I do have to say, like, and this is, I'm sure you'll hear this from these girls too, Kylie had a light inside her and a strength that was unmatched. And so I think we actually found strength in each other.
The team is playing in honor of former pitcher Kylie Flo Rogers, who passed away last September after a 5-year on-again, off-again battle with Ewing sarcoma, an extremely rare cancer often found in children and young adults. Her teammates remember how Kylie faced her battle with cancer head-on, the only way she knew how, with a smile.
You couldn't tell. Her personality never wavered. She was still like one of the most positive people. She was still one of the happiest people I ever knew. She was always in a good mood. She was always trying to make other people happy.
Originally misdiagnosed with a common case of bursitis in the hip, Kylie and her mother Mary Kay would soon learn that it was much more serious than they could have ever imagined.
I think when you think of Kylie, that it really, if you have an image of her in your head, and it's kind of like just this light, and whenever you think about it, you can't do anything but smile.
And after a year of inpatient and outpatient chemotherapy and major surgeries to resect her hip and most of her right femur, Kylie was pronounced cancer-free in March of 2018. With one goal in mind, pitch in the circle one more time.
She went into her senior year here at Xavier, couldn't play anymore, unfortunately, because of her hip, but decided that she wanted to be part of the softball team. And really just was the most amazing spirit.
Kylie never let anything get in her way of her goal to pitch again. And little did she know her chance to pitch would come again on senior night to throw out the first pitch for the final time as an Xavier Gator.
The feeling was electric in the crowd. I mean, there were obviously families and friends, not only Kylie, but all of the seniors to celebrate that. We had a large crowd, but importantly, a lot of her doctors, nurses, other medical providers, and it was just, there was so much support, so much love in the crowd. It was spectacular.
The Xavier Gators have since then commemorated the home dugout to Kylie Flo Rogers and have dedicated the season to her as they will continue to fight to secure another 6A state title. In Phoenix, Benjamin Garcia, Cronkite Sports Report.
Our condolences to the Rogers family and a nice dedication by the Xavier Gators.
Today we have a special report on how the conflict in Russia and Ukraine has impacted athletes in the Valley. We have full team coverage from myself and Cronkite News reporters Connor McGill and Ryan Blank. We start with GCU men's basketball player Dima Zador, who came to the United States from Ukraine on his own to play basketball. It was a tough end to the season for Zador, who is thinking about his family back in Ukraine, including his uncle and father, who are on the front lines.
About half of my family right now fighting for their town right now in the front lines, and it's a little tougher in the past 2-3 days because Russian soldiers, they blew up their power plants, so people are struggling to charge their cell phones.
His basketball family is supporting Zador during this time, but the sophomore forward is worried for his family, whom he talks to about once every 24 hours. Although he's not helping physically, he's doing everything he can to spread awareness of what's happening in his home country.
I understand there is not much I can do physically from here, but I'm just trying to do as much as I can on social media and spread true information that comes from my family and tens of other families around the country.
More than anything, the support Zador has received has meant everything to him, as he continues to do his part by having his voice heard on social media. My thanks to Zador for sharing his story with me. Next, we take a look at a Russian athlete who's been impacted by the conflict. Cronkite News reporter Connor McGill spoke to a player on the women's basketball team at Benedictine University in Mesa, whose family's in Moscow. It's been a difficult time for her as she has no idea when she can go back home.
Kate Lavinka, a native of Moscow, Russia, picked up a basketball for the first time at the age of 12 and came to the United States at 16. Now she's currently a junior at Benedictine University in Mesa, where she's playing the sport she loves. Challenged by distance, an ACL injury, and now conflict back at home, Lavinka has a lot on her mind.
Not knowing what is happening next, not knowing when I'm gonna see them, not knowing how they are there. It's just every day my thoughts are there. It is hard to focus on other things, because I'm here, my life is safe, in a good place, everything's good. I'm in Arizona, it's sunny, I'm having an interview right now and they are there and it's completely different atmosphere for them there.
Glavinka did have plans to go back home for spring break in Moscow, Russia to see her family, but all of that has come to a halt due to sanctions on airspace. For now, the closest thing she has to her family is FaceTime calls.
It's not gonna happen. I don't really know when it's gonna happen, when's the next time I'm gonna see my family, which makes me absolutely heartbroken and sick. But it's gonna be fine.
With the basketball season now over, Glokovina will look to recover from her ACL injury and await news from home. In Phoenix, Connor McGill, Cronkite News.
And finally, Phoenix Mercury center Brittany Griner is the most high-profile athlete caught up in the Russian-Ukraine conflict. The WNBA star has been detained in Russia since mid-February on drug charges. Cronkite News reporter Ryan Blank takes a look at Griner's difficult situation.
On February 17th, Brittany Griner was stopped at a Moscow airport. Customs officials alleging the star's center was carrying cannabis oil in her luggage. She's been detained on drug smuggling charges with very little information known. The WNBA community, including former Mercury assistant coach Chastity Melvin, are rallying around the two-time Olympian.
Brittany is one of the kindest-hearted human beings that I've ever met. She was a very caring person, a very good human being to be around. Just went with the flow. Just couldn't ask for a better athlete with that type of platform and that type of star status.
The star status that Griner carries has people questioning if her detention is politically motivated, since diplomacy between Russia and the United States is strained due due to the Ukraine conflict.
Doesn't make things easier because communication is difficult. Our embassy is understaffed at the moment. Strictly from a legal point of view, it shouldn't complicate life, but that doesn't mean it won't.
Griner's predicament highlights the challenges WNBA players face when playing overseas. Chastity Melvin, who played in 8 different countries, says athletes don't always understand the cultural differences and political climates when playing abroad.
For the most part, you do live in a bubble when you go over there. It's basically you're with your team, you go to your apartment, and you're playing the game of basketball. And then if you don't speak the language, you could be missing out on a lot.
Every athlete has to be aware of their personal safety. They have to be aware of the laws of the land that they're going to go into. They have to be aware of whether or not culturally they're going to fit in.
Griner was playing for the Russian team UMMC Ekaterinburg, a popular destination for WNBA athletes, including Diana Taurasi, because the money is too good.
Everybody wants to play in ECAT. Up until this war, ECAT is 3-4 times everybody else in the world. I'm talking about a place where all of the top players ended up playing.
While countless athletes have shown their support for Griner on social media, some people have been critical of the 2-time Olympic gold medalist.
Some of these opinions are just atrocious. She's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's partner. She's somebody's sister. She's somebody's auntie. She is one of the kindest human beings with a huge heart.
Nearly half of the WNBA's 144 players were playing overseas this offseason, including more than a dozen in Russia and Ukraine. All of them made it out, except Griner, who faces up to 10 years in prison. In Phoenix, Ryan Blank, Cronkite News.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.